Welcome to LawNext PR, the podcast where we put a spotlight on the latest news coming out of the legal tech industry. This is Bob Ambrogi, and in each sponsored episode of LawNext PR, I interview a legal tech company about its latest news. Today we're talking with the company SimpleDocs about the launch of SimpleAI, an AI-powered playbook builder for in-house legal teams. And joining me to tell us all about it or discuss all about it is Preston Clark, the CEO of SimpleDocs. Preston, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Bob. How are you?
Good. Thanks for coming on the show, and good to talk to you again.
Likewise.
Before we get to what you have just announced, I always like to provide some context for our listeners. So kind of just tell us a little bit about SimpleDocs and what you do, and then we'll talk about the news you've just announced.
Yeah, SimpleDocs is about a year and a half old. We're a contract lifecycle management company. We're in that vast category, that highly competitive category. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm a former in-house attorney. I am also the co-founder of Law Insider. So I've spent the better part of 15 years not practicing law, but building software. I had this idea that in a very crowded market, there was still a way to do things in a more simple fashion, candidly, in a more unbundled fashion. I think a lot of the market is after large contracts and they've raised lots of capital. And so they have tons of constraints in terms of how they structure deals, and they make it hard to buy and then even harder to implement. And so, as you know, Bob, we launched AutoNDA last year, and it very much in this vision, it was what's a pain point that's very discrete, that is felt by lots of companies, both big and small, that we can just be absolutely excellent at. And so we launched AutoNDA, and that thesis proved to work. And we have customers publicly traded, Europe, Middle East, US, and that part of the business has gone wonderfully well. But we're watching how AI is taking off and have been for a while. And we knew that our customers expected a product like SimpleAI from us that enabled a more simple approach, but also was unbundled so that they could purchase it a la carte. And so that's what we're launching today, and we're super excited. And it's been in beta for about 3 months, and really excited to be here now and for us to open it to the market.
Yeah. So what exactly is it? I mean, describe what it is that you're launching. What does it do?
Sure. So like so many others, at the core, we are a Microsoft Word integrated Word add-in that reviews and redlines contracts using AI. I think the differentiator for us is that we've, from the start, because AutoNDA was very much focused on in-house, the SimpleAI tool was focused on the in-house use case, which really means Playbooks. We're launching this with 2 models of Playbooks. One is, we of course have a deep partnership with our sister organization, Law Insider, and the Law Insider standard Playbooks, one SaaS, one NDA, one DPA, come preloaded. And these are publicly available, steering code developed playbook best practices for negotiating an NDA or a cloud service agreement that can be modified and configured. And that library is going to continue to expand. So first point of value is that we have really excellent playbooks that can be used off the shelf that are available for in-house teams. And then,
just to amplify on that for a second, for people who don't know the background, we did a few months back, towards the end of 2024, acquire this company, LawNDA, that had developed this standard NDA, and then has been developing other standards since you've acquired them. And so that's kind of what you're referring to in terms of having those kind of standard agreements, standard parts of the playbook there.
Let's hang there for a second. So thanks for double clicking on that, Bob. There's this idea that a standard contract makes sense in the in-house context because a lot of the agreements are structured very similarly, and the ways that it's different might be, one organization wants to do auto renew, or your SLA standard is different, or your jurisdiction or governing law, but in the margins or in the clause by clause, we're using different words to otherwise describe the same thing. And so one NDA became incredibly popular globally, and we saw that as an opportunity to bring that in-house and expand it to other use cases. And so very recently, or by the time this launches, it will have launched the one SaaS cloud services agreement standard is now available, and more are coming. One DPA is already available. But Bob, for every one of these standards, let's call them templates, there is a corresponding set of rules or playbook that govern or that sort of correspond to that document. And so as a sort of crude hypothetical or sort of example, the OneNDA standard does not include a non-solicitation provision. And that then becomes a codified rule into a playbook. And so if you are an adopter of OneNDA and you send out NDAs all the time using that template, well, invariably, you're still going to be receiving third-party NDAs, and they may not accept yours, even though it is a global standard. But you can still then use those same rules in how you negotiate and redline that agreement. And that's what the SimpleAI integration with these playbooks enables. And so if you are an adopter of OneNDA or OneSaaS or OneDPA, and you don't have your own playbook, or you just sort of want to start from a best practice, we have that integrated in. And so that's sort of getting back to the initial question. Feature number one is off-the-shelf playbooks, but that bring in this expertise and these standards that I think are pretty unique to the industry.
Yeah, I'm sorry to sidetrack you there, but I think it was useful to bring that out. But then the other part of this is not working off of the preloaded playbooks, but allowing users to effectively build their own.
Right. And this takes some design as well, because we are very much an enterprise organization. So when we launched AutoNDA, I wasn't sure who our customer was going to be. I hoped that it would be larger customers, and that has proven true. So publicly traded, large multinationals, US, Europe, beyond. And in that use case, we expect to have a dedicated account manager. We expect to do a lot of the heavy lifting from a setup and implementation perspective. And so when we first launched just the playbook functionality in beta, we sort of hid the builder aspect, Bob, because we assumed that, this white glove experience where no, you just give us your spreadsheet and we will masterfully convert it into prompts and load it in, and then you'll just log in to Microsoft and there it'll be. You'll just say run playbook. And what we discovered with one of our partners in the UK, a large financial institution, is they had their whole team and they were like, no, this is amazing. We want to see it. Because we want to make this better. We want to make it our own. We want to add more playbooks, and we don't want to have to come through you. And it wasn't because they didn't enjoy their customer success manager. It was because they saw the power of it. And so we were getting prepared for this launch, which we're at now. And it sort of accelerated our UI design to create the ability for our customers to self-serve and to design their own playbooks. And there's still some coaching and some training that happens there, because in law school, we certainly did not learn how to design prompts. But I think that is the biggest part of the release today. The standards are incredible and are really helpful for getting started. But what large organizations need is the ability to build their own. And we've enabled that. And I think we've done it in a really intuitive way. And the best part is that you can test it live in real time. So you can load in your prompts. You can then go back to Microsoft Word, run it against a test NDA or cloud service agreement or whatever agreement type it may be, and see how the work that you just implemented, the prompts that you just put into the system, then materialize in a live negotiation. So that is also a feedback loop that we're not used to in law school, because we're sort of used to a longer feedback cycle from a tech adoption perspective, where we're rolling this out to the University of Miami School of Law right now. Sorry to take another track here, but for the students, we're literally teaching them that cycle, where it's not about creating a spreadsheet of playbook rules. It's about building this in the back end of a tool and then testing it in Word to see if the prompts are configured properly and producing a result that would be equivalent to what you would have done manually.
Yeah, this is a podcast, and so we're not having a visual demonstration of this, but I wonder if you can try and maybe visually describe it a little bit, because I've seen some playbook builders where essentially you're kind of, copying and pasting from a contract into a form or something, and that suddenly becomes an online playbook. This is a little bit different than that, right? I mean, why don't you describe kind of how it works?
It is, but we've seen those too. And I actually don't know how that works, because, Electra with OneNDA will be the first to tell you, as I will, that a contract that is your own paper is a set of rules that govern what you expect from your counterparty. But that is not a one-to-one relationship with how you negotiate. The SLA that I put out for my cloud service agreement is going to be different from what I accept or tolerate for vendor relationships, right? It's not one-to-one. It's not always exactly equivalent mutual. And so certainly I could upload a negotiated third-party agreement in hopes that the AI would extrapolate a set of codifiable rules that could then generate a playbook. I don't think that we're quite there yet. We've tried it. The results are sort of shaky at best. And so what we've enabled, to answer your question, with instructions, with training, an open box that gives you sort of a binary choice of either creating a red line based on a specific set of instructions, identified term length. Our default is 12 months. We also accept 6 to 24. And then add comment, as a matter of policy, we only accept X, Y, or Z. What the AI would then result, when you go test that, what you're going to get back, Bob, is if they request 6 years, it's going to push back to 12 because that was your default. If they put 6 months, that is within the range of fallback, so it's going to automatically accept it, so it won't flag it as a red line. This sort of iterative process of being very descriptive about what you want, giving instructions on whether or not to redline or just flag an issue, definition of confidential information. Is it too broad? Is it too narrow? I don't necessarily want to impose my definition of confidential information. So I'm not going to say, this is our confidentiality definition clause, because the counterparty doesn't want that. That's going to elongate our process. So every time I get an NDA, I'm just redlining out their definition, placing it with mine. Instead, I'm going to create a prompt that says, if the definition is too narrow, please flag it. And in this case, instead of a red line, I'm going to get a flag that says, this clause may be too narrow for your purposes. And there I can pull in standard language as needed. But the idea is, this is the type of training we want to do for law students. It's certainly the type of training that we want to do for in-house attorneys, so that instead of codifying things in a spreadsheet, they're learning how to test in real time how their rules can be implemented through AI. So hopefully that is descriptive enough, realizing that we don't have visuals here.
So as a user is kind of playing around with developing these prompts in the builder, in the Playbook builder, do those get saved and available within the organization, or are they specific to the user?
Yeah, so it's saved within the organization, and then we have sort of access rules. And so if you have a large organization and your employment HR function has, red lines relating to offer letters, or that's probably not a great example, but we have divisions by department so that not every logged in user is seeing the same playbooks. But as a general matter, we are an enterprise organization. Default on would mean that any playbook that is created is available to the organization. So we're not a consumer first organization just generally. And so we have some organizations where we may only have one user, but AutoNDA within an organization might reach a third or a half of all employees. And SimpleAI is different because it's a legal tool, but it's still enterprise first in that sense.
So now within what you've built, you've got preloaded playbooks. Users can use the playbook builder to create their own playbooks. And then from there, it's redlining. You're running it against agreements, and it's doing standard redlining, and you're able to accept suggestions or not. Is that right?
That is right. Yep. And we have two other, I think, really important features I'll touch on quickly. We do have a SimpleAI assistant, which is leveraging OpenAI today. It will integrate with Law Insider in the coming months so that you'll be able to pull in sample clauses and other language from the Law Insider database. As it is now, you can interface with the document. So if you don't have a playbook and you want to identify risks, or if you want to have summaries, that is available. It also can have redline capability. So if you want to find a clause and then move it directly over into the document. The other feature that is by virtue of the fact that we are a CLM on the back end is that there's going to be this is not launching today, February 11th, but it's launching in the beginning of March, is a send and sign functionality, Bob. And so in the event that you're accepted the final round and the document is now ready, it's integrated with eSign. It stores back into our own repository at SimpleDocs, but you can take the completed version within Microsoft Word and route it out for review and signature with one click. So, the coming together of the platform allows us to further differentiate, I think, because we're not solely a contract review tool, but ultimately what we want to do is get you to signature faster. And so that capability is a couple weeks away.
Okay. And this is available now to customers?
It's available now. You can go to the App Store, type in SimpleAI, you'll see it. It has a guest access experience where you can test a sort of a light version of the standard playbooks. You can't configure them, so you can't put your term length or your confidentiality period or jurisdiction, but you can use the base standards. And I think that's a good way for people to test it out. So if you're a competitor and you want to see what we're doing, if you have 3 tools already and you just want to compare us to them, whatever the use case is, we invite you to download the Word add-in and give it a try.
And how do you price it?
$150 a month, cancel anytime, unlimited access.
Well, anything else you'd like listeners to know about SimpleAI?
SOC 2, we're enterprise. We do this for publicly traded companies. We don't train on your data. And this is a really crowded market, but it's super exciting. And so I just think that we're trying to do things in a way that increase accessibility, make it easier to use and more flexible to use. And that's reflected not only in our UI and in the core product design, but also in our pricing and, start it, stop it, however you want to use it. But our goal is we see this wave of AI adoption. You see it more than any of us, Bob, and we want to ride the wave. And in order to do that, we're going to have to be easier to use, more intuitive, more flexible. And I think that that's where we're launching today, but we will continue to strive in that direction.
Congratulations on the launch. I know you put a lot of work into this, and it's great to get it out there. And it sounds great. Thanks for coming on the show today to talk about it.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it.
All right, that's it for today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube at LawNext, and you can find all of our episodes on the LawNext Legal Tech directory under the Resources tab. This is Bob Ambrogi. Thanks for listening.